So we'll just do some quick introductions here. My name is Amanda Kenefick. I lead the Midwest brand partnerships for LG Ad Solutions. We work with both brands and agencies to help them drive incremental reach across their CTV and cross-channel investment. And then I'm here with Catherine Berger. She is the Senior Director of Growth Strategy at Ferrara. So excited to talk to you about candy and growth today.
Two topics that usually get people somewhat excited, or at least a smile.
Yes. So we thought we would start this out with just a fun fact from Catherine about Ferrara. So do you want to just tell the audience a fun fact about the Ferrara brands?
I'm glad you asked me ahead of time because
Yes.
I fear if I had been put on the spot, I would fall short. So I've got a couple of fun facts. The first is I wager to bet everyone in the audience has had one of our products. And I specifically would bet this because we make 95% of candy corn, candy canes, conversation hearts, and jelly bird eggs. So we're huge in the seasons, but those brands specifically are under our Brock's portfolio. So we make a bunch of your favorites. We kick off the fall season with our candy corn. Another fun fact about Ferrara, more specific to our industry, is 4 years ago, we had no social media channels. We had no media spend. We had these legacy brands and we were acquiring more legacy brands and growing a ton. But the growth that we've seen from a marketing communications perspective has been just in the last couple of years. So we've done a lot of work and I'm excited to talk to you about it today. And we've got a lot of work to do. So
awesome. Okay, let's dive in. So Catherine, we're going to talk a little bit about your background. It spans across mobile, data, media, brand transformation, growth. Just tell us a little bit about your current path into your current role and, what inspired you to join the team at Ferrara?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So I have a traditional media background. I grew up in agencies. I started my career at PhD in New York. I remember it was my first time in a real office building as an intern. And they had just won the GlaxoSmithKline business. So my desk was in a hallway, like a literal at the end of a hallway. So my team could never find me when they needed me. From there, I tended towards innovation roles. So I had the privilege of working in an innovation capacity at Horizon Media. And from there, it sort of defined my next couple of jumps. I spent 5 or 6 years in consulting, and I had the privilege to really understand the capacity of media with the broader marketing umbrella and work on some really cool projects with some really cool brands. And that kind of, ignited a passion. And I chose the role at Ferrara because I would have this feeling when projects ended as a consultant. And it would be both a feeling of tremendous relief, like, okay, it's done, I did it. And this feeling of sadness of not getting to see it through. Yeah. And so I had finished a really big project and I was just so bummed that I wasn't getting to work on it anymore. It was actually for a competitor of Ferrara's. And I got to thinking, okay, I think maybe it's time for me to actually roll up my sleeves and join a brand. And so Ferrara was perfect because we are in this hungry growth phase.
Right.
So that's how I ended up at Ferrara.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then, following to that, what are some of the key growth projects that you guys are that you're spearheading with your team right now? And what's exciting to you about them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my role is really to think about our long-term vision.
Okay.
And that's pretty exciting for me because we spend a lot of time in media planning on a calendar basis, and it's a lot of planning, but it's not a ton of really long-term planning. So long-term right now is defined as about 5 years, which may not be long-term for some CPGs, but for brands that 4 years ago didn't have media spend, that's a long-term for us. So I am thinking about all the things that we need to do to set our long-term growth ambition and achieve it.
Awesome. So this was already mentioned, but the Ferrara brand is over 100 years old. And so, how are you guys honoring the legacy of the brands while focusing on innovating for the future?
Yeah, it's really everything that we're doing right now is thinking about these tremendous equities that we have. And if some of you are from the Chicagoland area, you probably know Lemonheads. They were longtime sponsors of the Chicago Blackhawks. People tell me about driving by, I think our Forest Park factory where the Red Hots would be made. And on the days the Red Hots were being panned, it would just smell of cinnamon. But we also have brands like Nerds. I brought some for, this is actually a very special package of Nerds. I'll tell you why. But we have brands like Nerds who most of us grew up with and treasure and love and can remember like shaking the pack. And we are bringing them to life through really, this is a category shaking innovation that we have. So we're innovating through our products, but we're also innovating in the way that we think about reaching consumers. So we are both trying to hold on to those equities that we have and build on them.
Awesome. And then, outside of the Nerds innovation that you guys are doing, what other types of innovation are you doing across the brands this year and coming up?
So I brought these special for you, Amanda, because they were just made yesterday.
Oh, thank you.
So these are not only are these our most premier innovation, and we're innovating across all of our brands from a product perspective, but we're also innovating in the way that we think about our consumers' lives and the way that we show up in them.
Nice.
So it's not a Nerds example, but
and when did the Nerds come out again?
This
product.
These specifically are gummy clusters. So our gummy clusters came out about 2 years ago, the original flavor, and they are this is urban legend, so don't quote me on it, but the legend is that in one of our factories, we have this big machine that tosses our trolley gummy worms in sugar to sand them. And the legend is that one day some engineer at the factory was like, what if we put Nerds in it and like wrapped a gummy in Nerds? And the gummy cluster was born. Maybe it was more scientific than that, but it's a really fun story, even if it's not 100% true. These have really broken through the category. The Nerds brand is growing 150%.
Awesome.
These are, if you haven't had them, they're incredible. I wish I had brought more, but I brought them special for you because this is our new flavor. It just won.
And they were made yesterday. So
they were literally made yesterday. I tried to get more and they were like, no, we don't have enough capacity to just hand these out like candy. Pun intended. So, and then they just won best non-chocolate innovation at Sweets and Snack Show. That's
awesome.
Yeah, a few blocks away.
Congrats.
So we're innovating product wise. We're also innovating in the way that we show up in content. So making these brands really relevant. For me, something that's really cool is this trend of throwback shows and throwback content. And we have brands that were relevant in the 80s and are relevant now. So we've had a couple of content integrations.
Very cool.
Yeah. So just finding ways to really like pull that nostalgia through.
Very cool. So moving, more into, the CPG space, obviously past couple years, CPG brands, they've faced a variety of challenges. What are the biggest challenges that, Ferrara is facing in the past couple years, and how's your team overcoming them?
Yeah, it's a great question. We face the same challenges, I think, that most CPG brands are facing right now. Supply is a challenge. Supply chain is a challenge. Hiring is a huge challenge for us. All of those things I think we're familiar with. We also have a pretty unique challenge in that we're a group of challenger brands, and that presents unique opportunity. We are in true growth mode. We're stretching. We need capabilities. We need talent every day. So I think that definitely exacerbates some of those challenges, but it's also what makes us a really fun place to work. So
that's great. You're getting into your media and your marketing strategies. So what does that look like for you guys right now in 2022? We heard a lot about like how brands planned, went to the upfronts this year and how some changes are happening. What kind of emerging media channels are you guys focusing on?
Yeah, definitely. So I think what is so fun for me and what's so unique about us specifically is we're young on our journey. We're very nascent, which gives us this incredible gift of not being mired in what was. And I would say that really makes us different from a lot of CPGs. We don't have this 60 or 40 or 80-year history of well, we've always done this and it's always worked. We don't have to fight against that. And so we pretty quickly determined, and as of 2021, shifted all of our brands to an all digital strategy. So we planned for that. We were almost there in 2020. And of course, that was a very odd year. So as we think about innovative channels, we're really trying everything. We found tremendous success with audio. There's a ton, I heard the presentation earlier, but there's a ton of just through lines with the way that candy makes consumers feel, and the way that candy brings joy, and the way that that audio really ignites some of those same kind of pleasure sensors in the brain. We also are huge into gaming. We're really in the early stages of exploring how all of our brands play across gaming. Some of our brands like Trolley has done a tremendous job of really connecting with consumers through gaming, and CTV, digital video content. We are almost 100% video, actually. I mean, video, audio, and gaming, but we're really all about bringing our brands to life in a digital fashion. So yeah,
that's wonderful. And
don't ask me about metaverse.
Definitely.
I know we're exploring, but I don't know.
The metaverse was talked about quite a bit yesterday. So, and then in terms of, you mentioned this, but you know, your products are making people happy. They're nostalgic. It's a really emotional kind of purchase. How are you using both media and creative to help tell the story of your brands?
It's a good question. So I'd love to say that we've unlocked this, and I think that in some ways we really have. I'll give a good example, and I can pull from a few. We do really strong work, but I think we're still on a journey to kind of bring it to life. The example that comes to mind, well, a couple, but I mentioned our Trolley brand in the gaming space, and there was, I'm not a gamer, so please forgive me if I.
Me neither.
There was the, which I think shows our age, because what, like 75% of Gen Z games as their number one entertainment activity. So, there's a game that is the hottest game right now, Elden Ring. And Trolley, we do a ton in gaming. It's naturally has a lot of natural affinities to a gaming audience, gaming profile. And my team and my colleague, Brian and his team, they created we have our Trolley Peachy rings. Well, they transformed the Peachy O's into Elden rings and launched that for a limited time offer, with media accompanying it and sending it to gaming partners. And the reaction was incredible. I mean, incredible. So I think when we do get it right, we get it really right, and we really tap into that passion. And so we're working on just trying to figure out how do we more consistently do that, both spontaneously and planned.
Yeah. And that's a really great way to like make a connection with that audience.
100%.
With that product.
100%.
In terms of how you guys are evolving in this space too, is obviously ever changing. Tell us a little bit about your test and learn approaches. Obviously, I know you guys are kind of new, you're on your journey, but would love to hear more about how you guys are testing and learning, and if there's anything that's tried and true for you guys right now that's working really well.
Yeah. Tried and true is funny because when you have, a couple of years to go off of, but it actually makes it so that we can be pretty formulaic. We are a CPG, 85% of purchases are still made at retail. So we still do have challenges in terms of measurement. We certainly can do all of the multi-touch attributions and what have you, but we've gotten really good, I would say. And I'm pretty proud of that. We've gotten really good at understanding what the KPI is, very simply, how we're measuring that KPI, and then putting it all together. And we have tremendous partners in Mindshare and really helping us think through that. And again, when you get to start from scratch and you get to say, okay, what does success look like? We're challenger brands. We tend to spend quite a bit less than our next competitor. We know we have to do things differently in order to win. And we accept that challenge. And when we do it and it works, it's really effective. We're growing. All of our brands are growing. more than the category, in some cases 2 or 3x more than the category. So we've seen it be effective.
Fabulous.
And I would say there's a little bit of art in that science too, with consumer centricity. And we hire people that really understand consumers, and we hire people that are our consumers, and we tap into that, and then measure those very simple KPIs. Are we looking for awareness? Are we looking for consideration?
Yeah.
Are we looking for conversion? Are we looking for repeat purchase?
Yeah, having the goal in mind up front.
And or are we looking for proxy of one of those? And it's okay if it is a we have the flexibility of, we're just going to make this thing because it's cool and we think it'll hit, and there's not a lot of risk if it doesn't work.
Yeah. Was that the case with the nerds
with
gummy clusters?
With the nerds. I would like to do my fabulous innovation team the honor of saying I think that there was a lot of tremendous work that went into these. I think it was a little bit more than the story I alluded to, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot more appetite, no pun intended, for risk when you don't have $1 billion brand on the line.
Yeah, exactly. And then in terms of your audiences, so obviously you have a portfolio of brands. Tell us a little bit about the audiences that you're going after. I know you mentioned gaming. What are your key messaging tactics? And then, times of year, obviously, I'm sure pretty important for a number of your brands. So what
definitely
kind of key seasons?
I think we're still, and we've done a really nice job of understanding who the consumer is and what the consumption moment is. And that means that in a lot of ways, anyone with a mouth is our consumer. And we try not to be too specific about really getting granular. But there are exceptions to that rule. Absolutely. Generally, our consumer is under 45 or has children in the house that are consuming. We have a lot of confection brands that are actually purchased and consumed by an older audience, older meaning not children. So 13 plus. And seasons are huge for us, of course, but we tend to be always on with our brands. We tend to think that moments of consumption are happening all the time, and we're in an impulse category. So it's critical that we're there when those moments are happening. It's very interesting when you talk to consumers. There's a huge gap in the intent to purchase versus where we know it is. So we have to fill that intent gap with media, frankly, and make sure that we're there when the craving strikes.
Absolutely. Moving into content. So obviously this was a topic that was talked a lot about yesterday, just the fragmentation that's happening in the space right now. You have apps, you have streaming services. How are you guys helping ensure that you are reaching those right audiences in all of the right places?
Yeah. I think this is one we haven't cracked. I think it's something we're working on for sure. The fragmentation continues to proliferate. There's no question. We look at where our consumer is, and I think that's our guiding light. Where's the consumer, and how can we show up authentically there? And that we try to put that value before what's the channel, who's the partner, who's the content creator, et cetera. But it's tough. I think an example of when we did this really well is for our Sweet Tarts brand. So Sweet Tarts, as I remembered it, are those Sweet and Tart tablets.
Yeah.
The innovation on Sweet, I mean, they're great. I love Sweet Tarts. The innovation on Sweet Tarts is incredible. Ropes and mini chewies and gummy splits. And it's just, they've truly brought that brand to life across a bunch of forms.
Awesome.
And the brand equity is really, you can have both. You can have everything at the same time. And it's,
and then consumers can try all of the different versions of the Sweet Tarts.
And so that has lended itself very much not intentionally, but that has lended itself to really a very pure alignment with the LGBTQ plus community.
Wonderful.
And I think that we were a little cautious because we didn't want to wade into that space without having something to really say. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done, especially, being LGBTQ plus myself. I'm really proud of that work. And we were able to do an integration with RuPaul's Drag Race, the latest season. And it just came together very organically. It made a ton of sense for the brand.
Mhm.
We were part of the reading challenge, which, like, if you watch the show, is it came together so organically, and it didn't really come from like, okay, we're gonna do a linear TV buy, and okay, we're gonna do this, and okay, we're gonna do that. It was really about what's exciting
Yeah.
for our community. How does this align with the ways that we're showing up and giving back to this community?
Mhm.
How does it align with the brand equity? And then the rest kind of followed. And so I appreciated the process there. And then I think the outcome came from that too.
Yeah, that's a really cool story and a great way to kind of interact and, blend the brand with your audience. Um, Shifting gears to measurement and success. How are you guys measuring that success right now across both your marketing, your media strategies? What does that look like? You talked a little bit about how the brand Nerds Gummy Clusters has grown, but
Yeah.
what other measures do you guys have in place?
Yeah, I mean, ultimate measure of success for us is growth and market share.
Yeah.
And we certainly look at a ton of proxies as well. I think in the instance for instance of RuPaul's Drag Race, it was like, we kind of used some maybe non-traditional metrics to understand what are people saying, understanding social media chatter, understanding how people were engaging with our product as a result of that. We track, like most brands, brand health tracking and understanding what
Right.
metrics we're trying to achieve within that are very important to us. And we've built a pretty formulaic approach to growth. And we know, again, that there's a little bit of art to it. And it's a little bit of just like hitting the right nerve with the consumer, understanding how we fill a consumer need with content as well as with a physical product.
Awesome. And then, future, kind of looking at the future, looking ahead, 5 years from now, and I know you mentioned you guys are just kind of starting your journey. How do you think both your role will change as well as just, the growth strategy for Ferrara in general?
Yeah, great question. 5 years is kind of my timeline horizon for success in this role. And I think if I'm successful and if we're successful, and I feel strongly that we will be, I think in 5 years from now, we won't be thinking about the market as a challenger, as a suite of challenger brands. We'll be thinking about the market as market leader. And what does the market leader do? How does the market leader behave? How does the market leader buy media? And that is super exciting because first we need to get there, but I think we'll do it.
Awesome. Well, I think we have a few minutes for any questions from the audience. Thanks again for having me, and thanks for running this conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you for this. This is great. I'm a huge Nerds fan too. So
Oh,
words with friends and nerds.
Good thing he's a coworker, so I can share.
Yeah, Amanda did not plant this question.
I feel terrible. I didn't bring more.
I'll just steal some of those. It's fine. You're talking about a 5-year horizon, right? How much of that is growing your brand, and then also how much of that is growing the actual category, right?
That's such a good question. Yeah, I mean, we both, right? We can't be market leaders just stealing share from competitors. We have to grow the category, and so a lot of it is, what does that look like? What is the future of sweet snacking? And I think we have a little bit of a different perspective than some of our competitors do, in the sense that, there's huge emphasis on better for you. And I think that will remain a massive trend in our category. But sweet treating brings an element of delight that, I've never shown up to a meeting with candy and had someone not have a little glitter in their eye. And there's something pretty special about that. It's not for every day, it's special. And so I think when you think about how does that evolve over time, how do we bring things like this to market that if you haven't had these, I don't mean to, push product, but they're truly a different experience. People who don't really eat candy are like, oh, wow, these are great. And they bring a little joy. And, we're not trying to be too much bigger than that, but we do think there's room to grow the category. Absolutely.
Thank you. Quick question, and it might be early and unfair, but with Keebler,
Yeah.
how another mature brand, long time, probably a
Yeah.
little bit of a different media mix. How is that integration going, and how are you guys kind of cross-learning?
That's a great question. So for those of you who aren't aware, Ferrara, it's confusing. Two very old, very legacy, legendary Italian-owned brands. Ferrara is who I represent. We're candy and sugar confection only. Ferrero, we is like a cousin company of ours, and we are currently repatriating our biscuits, our cookies portfolio into that. It's early. I think that, I mean, if any of the brands are an example of legacy, just incredibly beloved American heartland brands, it's Keebler. And Keebler probably has the biggest challenge ahead of it because of behemoths like, well, one starts with an O, I won't, but there's just been so much tremendous work done in the categories. I think there's a lot of work to go. But I think if anyone can do it, it's the Ferrero team. That's truly, I mean, they are just global juggernauts who really understand brand building. So I'm really excited to see how that turns out. But yes, you're right. A little bit different media mix, a little bit of a different challenge ahead of them. So yeah.
Probably have time for one more. Does anyone else have any questions?
Well, I've done that.
Okay.
Oh,
We
wait,
covered it.
I have another fun
Yeah.
fact.
Okay. Another fun fact.
Another fun fact. Our Chuckles brand is one of the first brands that the Ferrara family invented when the company started in 1908. It is older than all forms of media that we buy today, including talking movies. So silent
wow.
movies had come out, but
Yeah.
not talking movies. So
Think about that. How did they get the word out about that back then? They
it's just incredible how brands grew in a different time. I mean,
Absolutely.
anyway.
Yeah. Thank you, Catherine.
Yeah, of
This
course.
was
Thank you all.
great.
Thank you for this. I really appreciate it.